A big welcome back to those of you returning, and a big welcome to those new this school year. To kick off this 2019-2020 opening safety training, I'll first hand it over to our very own Chartwell CEO, Belinda Oakley.
Whether we're talking about food safety in our schools or the personal safety of our people, there's nothing more important. Prepare and prevent. Don't repair and repent. Countless families, communities, and kids are counting on us.
To continue growing our safety culture this school year, to reach that next level, we need to dig deep and resist temptation to do things just the same as they've always been done before. On an individual level, you'll probably need to shed some old habits and develop new ones with safety as a cornerstone. I think I can already feel the eyes rolling, and I get it. New habits are tough, especially if just the idea of hollering "hot pan" across the kitchen feels goofy or embarrassing. But regardless, I'm asking everyone that hears this safety training to think about their kitchens, think about your team, and the tasks you do while serving the children. Then pick out from this training some safe behavior, something that you know you're not already doing, and build that into your new habit. Because if you do, we'll all be goofy together and on our way to the next level of safety culture. I can't do it alone. None of us can. We all need everyone's help. Since the start of last school year, there were reported just over 1,000 injuries to our friends, colleagues, and Greater Chartwell's family. Now, you could try to guess how many of these injuries happened in your area, but we believe all injuries are preventable, so whatever the number, it's just too many. Okay, here we go. We know hazard identification is the first step. Practicing stop, think, act each day to identify problems in your kitchen, beyond even just those presented in this safety training, and raising awareness by talking about these problems with everyone really helps. We've put together a weekly safety checklist to set you off in the right direction. But with that many injuries, we already know you're identifying the hazards. We just want you to do it without the injury in tow. So with this year's safety calendar, monthly focuses and trainings, and the safety binder with checklists and discussions, we want to get you on the right track for opening. But since those trainings are still several months out, let's jump into a refresher of some of our most common safety challenges. With slips, trips, and falls, it would actually almost be comical if it weren't for people getting hurt, because we're the ones actually creating all the hazards that are injuring us, while we work around this kitchen and do our job duties. I'm talking about the unmarked wet floors, the food spills, the debris, the boxes, the items like bread trays and milk crates and walkways, and day to day just kind of moving things around, and we're stepping over one another to perform these tasks. We're doing all that to ourselves. Maintenance is a different thing, right? Because that's also a cause for concern. The facility and the kitchen equipment, sometimes they're disrupting our walking because water lines and hoses, electrical boxes, cords, conduit, all this stuff in our walkways. Outside, got pavement, uneven flooring, doorway thresholds. Sometimes we're getting hurt on this stuff before we even make it into the kitchen. So we gotta stay on top of our work orders. We've gotta coordinate corrections on site when possible, as soon as the hazards happen, and talk to each other about the hazards, mark them, use bright yellow tape or cones, anything so the injuries can be avoided. Slip-resistant shoes aren't going away. These will always be required, and you've got to stay on top of them and order or buy new ones when the soles get worn out. And if you live somewhere with snowy winters, just remember slip-resistant shoes are completely ineffective outside in the snow or ice. So wait until you're inside to change into your work shoes. And then in those areas of your kitchen where you're just always going to get water on the floor, like at your 3-compartment sink, in your dish room, by your steamer maybe, put down slip-resistant floor mats, and make sure you get the right ones. The Mighty Mats, they're flat, they're flush with the ground just about, so you're not going to have any accidental trips if you're using those. And here's another one that's not going away. Take 5. If you haven't already figured it out, so take 5 is you're supposed to take these short breaks, and not that kind of break, but just stop making food and look around the floor and pick stuff up and clean stuff up and get these things off the ground that people are tripping over, that people are slipping over. That's what that's supposed to be. So just start doing it. And here's one: burn injuries. Burn injuries, they're supposed to be relatively simple to prevent. With put on the right PPE, the glove, and you're not going to get burned if you're touching something with a glove on. But I think that people get confused here with which gloves to wear. So with the ovens, wear the blue oven mitts, the big bulky ones, and anything over 225 degrees, the oven mitts protect you from that. The burn sleeves, wear them with the oven mitts because you have that piece of your skin exposed. The oven mitt only comes up to your elbow, your shirt comes down halfway down your bicep. The burn sleeve covers that bit. And a lot of our injuries are people are brushing up their arms against the inside of the oven door, or the warmer doors bouncing back into their arm, and they drop a hot pan of food. That burn sleeve protects that area. That's exactly what that's for. With the steamer, use the steam gloves. With the stove, use the steam gloves. The serving line where the steam tables are, use the steam gloves. Anytime you're handling hot food or hot liquid, if it's giving off steam, use the steam gloves. They're good for 225 degrees and below. So you could actually, if you put your hand in a pot of boiling water, if you have this thing on, and it will keep you protected, but just don't pull anything out of the oven with these on. The blue vinyl aprons that we were originally for just, for chemicals, we're now saying, use those when you're working at the steamer also, because people are getting splashed sometimes by this scalding hot water. That apron, it stops the water. It doesn't come through. It doesn't get on your clothes. It doesn't get on your skin. If it splashes that part of your body. It should go without saying, but some of these injuries, please wear the PPE, wear the gloves on both hands, and keep both hands protected from the very start of the task. There's some confusion over the start of the task because people aren't putting on their oven mitts before they open the oven doors, and that's when the injuries are happening. So put those on before the oven doors are opened, and leave them on. Leave them on until you get your oven closed again, and until that pan is somewhere safe where no one's going to touch it. Then take the oven mitts off. Same goes for any of the burn PPE and any of the cooking equipment. So here's the thing with the cooking equipment. You got to be trained on how to use each one of these things, and you got to talk about the types of hazards, how you could get injured operating that. The oven is different from the steamer, from the stove, from the serving line. Maybe you have a combi oven. Maybe you have something that I've never seen. Warmers, those cause injuries too. But then a big piece goes back to the PPE, because once you understand, how you could get injured and what to wear, take those measures to focus on the task. Cut out the distractions. Don't have a conversation while you're getting in and out of the oven. Don't let people get too close to that workstation or back there in your area. This is maybe where things start feeling a little bit goofy, because almost treat it like you're walking on eggshells, because that equipment, it can and it will injure you, and it might not feel like it's going to happen to you, but those injuries that I talked about in the beginning, we see the same types of injuries over and over again when it comes to burns and working in this equipment. Then think about the pan. What are you going to do now? You got this hot pan in your hands. Before you ever take it out of the oven or the steamer or the pot off the stove, whatever it is, where are you going to place it? How far are you going to walk to the prep table where you're going to do the next step? Are there going to be people in your way? Is the walk space clear? Have you walked it already? Are you going to transfer the hot food onto another pan before you put it in the warmer or on the serving line? It might be 350 degree pan. You don't want to put that into a 180 degree warmer. But this is truly a stop, think, act moment. All the injuries we've had, their circumstances exist within these questions I'm telling you to ask yourself. Then pick out what applies to your situation and take action. Struck bys are a new focus topic on the safety calendar, and they're a significant portion of our injuries. We've all accidentally walked into a door frame, right? Well, this is a struck by. They can result when your body collides painfully with other objects or people. Prevention kind of relies on, again, habits. You want to slow down and not rush when you're doing a job. You want to check that pathways are clear. You want to keep things in their usual places. Keep oven doors closed. Keep cooler doors closed. Prep table drawers closed. And office filing cabinet drawers. Keep them all closed. Push open walk-in coolers slowly if you're coming out from the inside. Maintain control of carts. Distribute the load to the lower half of the cart, and if there's problematic wheels, get those replaced. Then avoid stacking items in storage too high. Don't store items overhanging any shelves, and don't place things on top of shelves precariously or any sort of unbalanced way. Also, alert others of your movement through the kitchen using verbal cues. So shout out and holler to them. Have fun with it. This is the goofy part, but you can have fun while feeling goofy. When you're approaching a blind corner, when you're pushing a cart past someone, if you're passing by someone and they're focusing somewhere else, they should be focusing on their task, but you want to let them know you're coming through in case they suddenly back up. Also, when you're carrying a hot pan, if you're carrying a knife, if you're carrying a heavy object, holler out phrases like hot pan, knife, on your left. Don't be shy. Here's another one that's not going anywhere. Cut resistant gloves. They're always going to be mandatory. So if you're not already on board and you're not using these every single time, you got to start using them. So maybe it's about where they're stored in your kitchen. I recommend put them stored, hang them on the wall on little hooks or clips right beside where knives are. So if you got to grab a knife, you got to grab a cut glove. Both are right there in your face. It'd be hard to say no to that. And if you did, you're definitely asking for an injury. And put the glove on before you put your hand on the knife. So do that first. Wear it on your exposed hand. If you're right-handed, you wear it on your left hand because that's your exposed hand. Left-handed, wear it on your right hand because that's your exposed hand. Everyone's got to think about this because it's different. And then if you go from a knife to using something else with a blade, a peeler, a mandolin, a can opener, box cutter, fruit segmenter, all of these, you got to think about what hands are exposed. Using something like a tomato slicer, you might put your right hand down in there, you might put your left hand down in there. Wear 2 cut gloves if you need to. But not when you're using a slicer. Don't wear cut gloves when you're using a slicer. Only when you're setting it up, only when you're cleaning it, definitely when you're cleaning it, and unplug the slicer before you start to clean it. But when you're operating it, keep your hands, one on the handle, one on the carriage. That's another thing. It's important to get the equipment training specific. This slicer might be different from the slicer you used at the other school last month. So that's where a JSA comes in, a training sheet on how to use this particular piece of equipment, which I'll talk about. But going back to knives, because that's what we used most, you got to get good with your knife skills, your knife handling, making your cuts and your chops. If you aren't picking it up, you shouldn't be the one using the knife. But if you practice with supervision, you can get better at this. A few things not to do with a knife. Don't use a knife to cut open bags. Don't use a knife to cut boxes, break boxes down. Don't use a knife to remove the lid off a can. Don't leave a dirty knife in a sink. Don't leave a knife for someone else to wash. Wash your own knife when you're done using it and put it right back in storage. Don't leave a knife lying around unattended at your cutting board, on the table next to your cutting board. When you set up your cutting board station, you should put a pan next to it, a small pan, a bullet pan, a shotgun pan, whatever pan, and you put your knife in that. If you got to step away for a moment, got to grab some more fruit and vegetables out of the cooler, or your supervisor needs to ask you a question, secure your knife. But when your knife's clean, you put it in storage in a knife box, in a knife cabinet, rolled up in a knife roll, on a knife magnet strip. Don't put them anywhere else. And sometimes it's other stuff you cut your hands on. Stuff that's not even meant to be sharp. We call these jagged edges, sharp corners. Be on the lookout for these. They're around your kitchen. If they're there, they're around. Once you identify them, tell your supervisor, put a work order, get them taken care of. Once they're taken care of, they're not a problem anymore. We see these come up though, like when people are cleaning because it's back behind something, they've never reached their hand back there before, and there's something sharp that they didn't know about and they get cut on it. Best practice? Wear a cut glove when you're cleaning. If there's even a possibility you might drag your hand across something sharp. You may feel goofy doing it, but I could think of a few injuries off the top of my head that this would have prevented. My last best practice that I've got for you with regard to cut prevention, this one's about helping build those good habits, but put a cut glove on the handle of the can opener so you can't use the can opener without first seeing the cut glove right there in your face. Really hard to say no to it when it's in your face and you know it's the right thing to do. JSAs, like I mentioned, these are a collection of training resources, one-sheets. Great if you're a new hire or if you're just completing a new task for the first time that you've never done before. The JSA breaks the tasks down step by step, identifying the hazards and how to prevent them each step along the way. Each JSA covers a single kitchen task or operation of a specific type of equipment. They should be available in your safety binder. Your supervisor should review them with you. You should sign off that you got training. But there might be one that you wish was there, you don't have it. Reach out to your region's safety champion. It might be something that they can help you put together. Okay, here we go. We're getting close. With strains, we ask a lot of our bodies. We're working long hours, we're working hard, we're lifting heavy objects more than we've ever had to lift before. Sometimes it feels like we treat our bodies like we're robots and we're not. But that's the modern workday for you. And you can't get around it, but the key is, how do you do it and not get injured? Well, what I see when I read injury reports about strains, back injuries, injuries of the joints, the ligaments, the muscles, more often than not, I'm reading it, it says, such and such person got hurt, they were lifting this and that, and then when they picked it up and they twisted, that's when their back started to hurt. And then I double take because twisting while you're picking up something heavy, of course your back hurts. The key with preventing strains is, picking up heavy objects, you got to keep your ears, your shoulders, your hips, your knees, your ankle, all that stuff aligned, squared up. You can't add any twist to that. don't twist when you're picking something up. If you gotta turn, use your feet to turn your body. The other thing is, you gotta get up close on the object. If you're trying to pull something off the shelf and there's something in the way so you can't get right there, don't stretch out your arms and reach for it. Get the stuff out of the way and get right there. You got this power zone in your body. It's right there in front of you between your shoulders and your knees. That's the strongest part. That's where your core is. If you're trying to lift something heavy up above, down below, or too far out, you're asking for injury. That's why we design our shelving systems the way we do. The layout, the safe storage, that yellow strip, you put those heaviest items on those middle shelves because that's right there in front of your power zone. So don't ever store heavy objects up top on the high shelves or down low on the bottom shelves. And when you're picking up objects, you gotta lift properly every single time. Don't put your body in some awkward posture. There's some room here for another best practice, like on delivery day when all that stuff's coming in and the driver drops it near the cooler, near the freezer, near dry storage. Do some stretches, limber up your body, get your muscles warmed up and activated before you dive right in, and then use slow, controlled movements. Understand your body's mechanics, and if you need help, you gotta know your limitations. If you can't lift it, ask for help. And if you can lift it, but you had trouble doing it, well, don't carry it a long distance, put it on a cart, push the cart, get it to where you gotta go. Don't drag heavy stuff behind you. Don't pull carts. One last thing I see about lifting technique is people go in with good intentions. Everyone knows you're supposed to squat to pick up a heavy object, but they squat, they get their hands on it, and when they go to stand up, what do? They bend over at the back and they go right back into that position where you're likely to get injury. The squat, keeping your back straight, you gotta follow that through the whole way. As soon as you hunch over while you're coming back up, all good done is out the window. Lifting is probably where people have the most trouble getting it right on their own. So definitely say something. If you see someone, even for a second, looking like they're going to lift something wrong, go up and help them. Coach them through it. They could probably use a spotter or someone keeping an eye on the way they're doing it to point out what's wrong. The deal with hazard communication is, frankly, we don't have a whole lot of injuries related to chemicals, but when they do cause injury, they're generally pretty bad. Think about it. OSHA, they use the same standards to govern chemical safety in our schools that they use to govern chemical safety in some plant where you fall over a rail and suddenly you're in some chemical vat getting melted down to the bone. And because of that, they make all the rules with hazard communication very strict. And I'm talking about OSHA. So while you maybe not having injuries, you probably definitely got some violations going on. The big thing is having your safety data sheet binders right. They all got to be in there, every SDS for every chemical, and you all got to understand how to look at this thing. You should be looking at it, understand the sections, understand the hazards, and then using the big one, section 8, the one that tells you what to wear when you're handling the chemical, use that one to wear the right PPE. There's no blanket statement with HazCom. You don't wear this, you don't wear that when handling everything. You look at the specific chemical and you wear the PPE that chemical calls for. You also got to store chemicals safely. Keep the caps on. Don't lose the cap. Put the cap back on. Never put chemicals on shelves up above eye level in case the cap's loose. And you got to know how to use the chemical properly. The safety data sheet binder, it doesn't tell you how to use the chemical. It only talks about the chemical safety. You got to read the label. The label's got to be there. It's got to be on the bottle. You got to be able to read it. That tells you how to use the chemical. And follow those instructions. Don't ever divert. Don't ever mix chemicals. Don't ever bring chemicals into the workplace that shouldn't be there. Not going to spend a lot of time on this one. After all, it's a video. You can go back and pause it and look at the images longer. But this just breaks down all the PPE that we've already talked about. And then it shows the dishwashing PPE for the first time. The key thing, though, is making sure that you got enough PPE, making sure that's in the right places, available, where you can find it when you need it. And then ordering more from your supervisor or director if it's damaged, it gets messed up, or you don't have enough. Okay, here we go. Hopefully by this point you've figured it out. You've picked out that one, that two, those three things that you're going to start doing differently, that new good habit you're going to build to be safe in the kitchen. And you've understood all this about what's unsafe. So here's a form for you in your safety binder, the Notice of Unsafe Work Conditions. Write in on this. Jot down something if you see something unsafe. We got to start talking about this stuff. We got to start getting to the root of these issues and dealing with them. So you see something unsafe, you see someone doing something unsafe, you write it down here, you tell your supervisor, it's got to be followed up on. And your safety manager comes to visit, they check in your unit, they walk around your kitchen, they should look at this. If they don't look at this, you should tell them, hey, come check this out. Here's what's unsafe around here. That way, they know what they're getting into. And they can help keep an eye on those things while they're there visiting. Because no one's going to get any better at this without a little effort from other people. Or without working together as a team. So look out for one another, keep each other safe. Everyone sign the team safety pledge. and use all your safety resources to your benefit. Your safety binder, your safety data sheet binder, your safety board, your safety committee. They're there for you. Have a great school year, and thank you for all you do.